Okay, so we are done with the first half of Unit 3 because it was really just all a review of Unit 2. The second half, we get into percentages. Percentages are something you will use for the rest of your life. It's kind of like a life skill. Okay, there's lots of math that we do. Like you'll probably never need to find the area of a triangle unless you become like an architect or something like that. But percentages you'll use in every profession, even just in your day-to-day life. Percentages, you'll come in contact with a lot of percentages and have to figure out percentages. If you shop, you'll need to know how to do discounts. If you work in retail of any sort, you'll need to know how to mark stuff up so that you can make money. What we're doing today and tomorrow, we're starting lesson 10 notes, but they're kind of long. It's not that it's hard, it's just the notes are all kind of lengthy. Same thing with today. So we're going to learn how to convert fractions, decimals, and percents today. You already know some very common fractions, decimal, and percent conversions. We're going to learn how to do the ones that aren't common, the ones that we don't just know off of the top of our head. There is math behind changing any fraction to a decimal or any decimal to a percent or any percent to a fraction. Okay, so that's what we're going to work on today. Tomorrow we will start lesson 10 notes and you'll have another worksheet over this same stuff tomorrow. So the first section, we're changing a percent to a fraction or a percent to a decimal. Does anybody know how to do either of these? If I have a percent, if I give you a percent and I say, what is the fraction form of 18%? Does anybody know how to change a percent to a fraction? Okay, let's say you got an 18% on a test. 18 out of how many possible? 100. Percents are always out of 100. So let's write that. Percents are always out of 100. So put the percent over 100 and reduce. Okay, that's any percent. Sometimes if it's a percent with a decimal in it, it gets kind of ugly, but you can still do that. Then we're actually going to do 3 examples. Okay, so I'm going to draw 3 lines here because we're going to do 3 examples. So try and divide that example box into 3. Okay, first one we're going to do is we're going to change 37% to a fraction. You can tell me, what would that be? Owen?
37 over 100.
37 over 100. Can that be reduced? Nope. The only one that sometimes we don't see is 3. How do we know if a number is divisible by 3? Who remembers that rule? Mallory?
If the 3 and the 7 add up to a multiple of 3.
Yeah, if the sum of the digits. So 3 plus 7 is 10. 10's not divisible by 3, so 37 is not divisible by 3. So that is 37% is a fraction. That's the easiest kind. It can't be reduced. Let's do 128%, which seems weird. But if you know, percents are always out of what? 100. So Owen, where would I start with that? Changing that to a fraction. If it's always out of 100. Brady?
128 over 100.
Yeah, we would start with 128 over 100, and then we know enough about fractions to know that's not the best final answer. Brady, what goes into both of those numbers?
2.
Okay, and I'm actually going to go higher because I know 4 goes into them. So I'm going to divide them both by 4. Let's show this. So that would be 32 over 25. which nothing goes into 32 and 25. But what else do you think I should do if I'm giving it in the best fraction answer, Brady?
Change it into
A mixed number, okay?
so it'd be 1 and 720.
Yep, so remember when you're changing it to a mixed number, I'm just going to do mine out here to the side. You put the numerator underneath, the denominator on the outside. 25 goes into 32 once. And then I have 7 left over. So it'd be 1 and 7/25. If you have over 100%, you should have a whole number in your fraction or in your decimal. Because that means you got over 100%, which is over 1 whole. Because if you eat 100% of a pizza, you ate the whole pizza. If you eat 128% of one pizza, you ate 100% of one and 28% of a second one. Okay, so anytime you have a percentage over 100, okay, let's do one more. 13.5%. Now we're going to start, just like we said, put it over what? Put it over 100. To have a proper fraction, we can't have decimals. But we can create an equivalent fraction. What would I need to do to get rid of that 0.5? What could I multiply by to get rid of a 0.5, Brady?
Like times 4 times 2?
Yeah, times an even number. Let's go with times 2. Times 2 times 2. So what would that be? 27 over 200. 3 doesn't go into those. 4 doesn't go into it. 9 doesn't go into it. So that would be the fraction. 27 over 200 is in simplest form. Does that make sense? So if you have a decimal,
We want to have a whole number.
yeah, you have to have,
0.5.
in a fraction, you can't have a decimal. You can't mix and match. We can have it as like a working step, because this is just 13.5
Whole number.
divided by 100. Yeah, get it to a whole number if you're given the answer as an actual fraction. Those don't appear very often, but it's easy for me to throw that in right now. Owen.
Can you make the 1/2 or the 0.5 into 1/2?
13 and yeah, but still 13 and a half over 100 isn't a proper fraction. That's a division problem. 13 and a half divided by 100. You can't have complex fractions as answers, which is what that would be. Brady.
Will the bottom one be on the test?
Probably not, no. Okay, now how do we change a percent to a decimal? Noel?
You put the decimal point from behind it. Well, you put it from behind it and you
Okay, so you can move the decimal point two places, which direction?
left.
To the left. Which when you do that, you're actually dividing by 100. So I'm going to keep those same 3 examples for this one. We're going to change 37% to a decimal. We're going to change 128% to a decimal. And we're going to change 13.5% to a decimal. Okay, Noel told us to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. Peyton, in 37%, I don't have a decimal point. Yeah, remember, if I don't see it, it's at the back, so it's actually right there, and then I move it once, twice. So it'd be 0.37 would be my decimal number. Did you hurt your other arm? Or are you just wearing your sling on the wrong arm?
No, I hurt his elbow. 3 practices back and broke my elbow. You haven't noticed that yet?
Well, I knew you had a sling, but I thought it was just the same arm that it has been. I didn't. I'm pretty.
He got out of it, and then he got
Okay.
out of it 5 days later.
Okay, 128%. Colton, what is 128% as a decimal?
1.28.
Good job. So we're going to show that we're moving it once, twice. 1.28. What about 13.5%, Bianca?
It would be, you would move it twice over it, and so it'd be 0.135.
0.135. Now, if you are writing a percent, it is important to put the percent sign. That tells the world that, hey, this is a percent, so it's out of 100. Okay? If you put 0.135%, that is not the same thing. That's a difference of getting, which neither of them are great, but that's a difference of getting 13% on a test or getting like less than 1% on a test. Okay, there's still a huge difference there. So that percent sign means that it's out of 100 point or possible percentage points. This is just a number. We don't know what it's out of. Questions on those two rules? Okay, going down. Now we're changing a fraction to a decimal and a percent. How do you think we change a fraction to a decimal? Fraction to a decimal. Any ideas? There's an easy way and a hard way. Okay, Maddox says divide it out. That way works all the time, so I'm going to write it. Divide numerator divided by denominator. Again, that works every single time, but it's not always the easiest. Brady?
So like if it was like 0 and 1 100ths, however you say that would be like the fraction. So 1 100ths would be 1 over 100.
Okay, so fraction to decimal. If you can get the denominator, oops, I can't spell, denom to 10, 100, or 1,000 and say it properly. Sorry, that's a lot of words to show what to do. But Brady said if it's a fraction, like 3 over 10, how do you say that properly? 3 over 10? 3/10. Can we write 3/10 in decimal form? Yes. If it's over 100, like 87 over 100, we would say 87 hundredths, which would be like 0.87. Same thing with thousands. So if the denominator is not a 10, a 100, or 1,000 already, if you can easily get it there by creating an equivalent fraction, that's usually the easy way, but they're not all that easy. Or we can divide it out. So we're going to do one of each. This one we're going to split it this way, just because we're going to have to do some long division. So for the first one, I'm going to do 4/25. Okay, if I say 4/25, does a decimal magically pop into your head? No, but can I easily get 25 to be 10, 100, or 1,000? Which one? 100 by doing what? So I'm going to show that I'm going to turn this into 100 times 4 times 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Now, I don't have a decimal yet. How do I say that fraction?
1600.
16 hundredths, which is what as a decimal?
0.16.
0.16. Okay, that's the ones we like. Those ones are prettier. Sometimes we get 13/40. Now we can easily get 40 to 10, but is 13 divided by 4 a pretty number?
No.
No.
You could, can I,
What?
you could just say 40 times 2.5 and then get it to 100.
Okay.
But then, yeah. That does. But then 13 would be.
It would be, yeah, it would still be a decimal number on top,
13.
which still might work out. That still might work out.
We could do
But
40 times
there's lots. This one, let's just divide it out to show what we would do. And I want you to write that because the common error on these is you flip it under the box. The numerator goes underneath because you're seeing how many 40s go into 13. I know it has to start with 0 point something because I don't have a whole number in my fraction. Could I just start doing math yet? Brady, what do I need to do?
Since 40 doesn't go into 13 and times you put a 0 above it.
Yep, and then I'd have to start dropping my zeros. Okay? To save time, I'm going to do the math here because there's something else. I picked this one because I think it's, oops. So if I actually divide that one out, I would get 0.325. So I would have to drop 3 zeros before I got there. One thing I do want to point out, and this was from the cool down worksheet, or not the cool down worksheet. Never mind. We already talked about it during RTI time, where if it's a repeating decimal, don't round it, just put the repeating bar over the top. So like if this was 3.255555555, you would just put the repeating bar over the 5. You wouldn't round it to 6. And no, unless it tells you to round to the hundredths place. That's the only time you round. If you can give an exact answer, that's always the best answer. Okay? So best case scenario, we can easily get it to 100, 1,000, or 10 and say it properly. If not, we can divide it out and give the decimal that way. How do you change a fraction to a percent? 2 options. Easiest way is, Bryce?
Take the fraction and sorry. Just take the fraction and wasn't it if it's no, never mind.
Fraction or percents are always out of 100. So best case scenario, I get the denominator to 100. Get denom to 100. And then the numerator would be our percent. Option 2 is find the decimal, then percent, which means convert it to a decimal and then move your decimal point 2 spots to get the percent. If you can't easily get the denominator to 100, you have to divide it out, get your decimal, and then move it. It's a 2-step process. So we're going to use those same 2 examples. 4 over 25, and I'm going to cut it this way this time, and 13 over 40. So the top one is one that we can easily get the denominator to 100 by multiplying by what? 4, because we just did it before. So that would be 16%. Because I just pull the top number. If it's over 100, the numerator is my percent. The bottom one will say we can't easily get it to 100, so I already know when I divide it out, I'd get 0.325. And then, Bryce, how do I change the decimal?
You bring back the decimal point 2 places.
Yep, you'd move the decimal 2 places to the right. So that would be 32.5%. Yep, you could do it either way. You could also write 32.5%. Okay, we good with that one? They're all pretty simple. It's just when you get them all together on one piece of paper, remembering, do I move it to the left? Do I move it to the right? When do I put it over 100? I'm going to do one more fraction to decimal. Do you guys have room, like right here, where I do?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to do one more right here. Let's do, just to show you, 4 2/5. We'll do a common one. 2/5 is a common fraction. What is 2/5 as a decimal? Brady?
0. No, 0.4.
Yeah, and it's 0.4 because I can easily do times 2 and get 4/10. If I say 4 4/10, how do I write that as a decimal? 4 4/10. Addie? 4.4. So if there's a whole number in your fraction, there's going to be a whole number in your decimal answer. If it gives you a decimal and it's asking you for a fraction, if there's a whole number in the decimal, there has to be a whole number in your fraction. What does that look like in percents? If you have a whole number as a decimal or a fraction, what does that tell you about your percent? Maddox?
40 cents. Wait,
What does it tell you about your percent? If I give you a decimal or a fraction mixed number, which means it has a whole number, what does that tell you about your percent? Brady?
for the decimal, it would just be
I'm not talking about, I want to know about the percent. If I give you either of these, that one or that one, I should know something about my percent just by looking at those. Peyton? Noel?
You have something higher than
It's going to be over 100%. Okay, which would be like extra credit on a math test. Let's say I have a big dog. I have a pit bull. When he was a puppy, let's say when he was born, he weighed 2 pounds. If I said his weight increased by 450% in 1 year, which it probably went up higher than that, that means if I took his initial weight and multiplied it by 4.5, which would only be, what, like 10 pounds? So he went up way higher than 450% in a year. But that's where you would see numbers that are over 100%. Not typically in math class, you don't see percentages that high. But when you're talking about growth or even decay, which is getting above of where you guys are. Like bacteria growth. If you get one little piece of, one little cell, one little chunk of bacteria, it replicates very, very fast. It grows exponentially, actually. There's a math, you'll learn it in Algebra 1, exponential growth, exponential decay.
3rd or 4th grade, we took like little swabs of things around the room.
Yep,
What are
and
they-
grew.
We wiped
Yep.
it or something and we put it in these things.
Okay, let's keep going. Let's keep going. But that's when you would see really high percentages. Is usually when you're talking about growth.
Came back the next day, the germs were like,
Yes,
I
yep.
did the math.
Because germs grow exponentially. Okay, next one, decimal to a fraction. How do we turn a decimal to a fraction? So easy, it's hard. Brady?
well, you could just do the thing that I said earlier.
Which is what?
Just say, however you say it in the decimal is how you say it in the fraction.
Yeah, you say it properly and then reduce. So we're going to do 2 examples. 0.87, 5.24. Is that saying it properly?
No.
Chase, how do I say 0.87 properly?
87%.
That's a percent, you're right, but how do I say it proper? Like, how do I say that decimal number properly? 87, hundredths. Alex, what does 87 hundredths look like as a fraction? 87 over 100. And sometimes we get lucky and it can't be reduced, so we're done. If it can be reduced, we would then just reduce the fraction. Nev, how do I say that next decimal number? Okay, 5 and 24 hundredths. What does that look like as a fraction? Okay, 24 over 100. Is that all I have to write? Okay, what else do I need? Bryce?
You put the 5.
Yep, the
right
5.
next to the decimal.
If there's a whole number in the decimal, there has to be a whole number in the fraction. What goes into 24 and 100?
2.
Higher?
4.
4. Or you can divide by 2. Divide by 2 again. It doesn't matter how quick you get there as long as you get there. But we're just going to divide by 4. Divide by 4. And I'm going to show you here's a common error. So that's 6. That's what I will see. What is wrong with that, Nev? What'd I do wrong? I forgot my 5, okay? And I have some people who will even put it like in this step and then still forget it in their answer. So always go back to, if I have a fraction in my decimal, I have to have a fraction in my answer. Or so, I said that wrong. If I have a whole number in my decimal, I have to have a whole number in my fraction.